Have you ever poured your heart into building something, only to be cast aside as if you were never part of it? That's exactly where I stood. 9 years, countless late nights, endless flights, gone with one polite meeting and a stack of termination papers. They said they needed hungrier talent. Fresh blood. New energy, they told me. As if the $12 million portfolio I built was just luck. As if the relationships, the loyalty, the nights I missed with my family didn't mean anything at all. I shook their hands. I smiled. And I walked out, not because I was defeated, but because deep down, I knew something they didn't. They fired the backbone. But they forgot who built the system that held it all together. And when you forget who truly built the house, don't be surprised when the walls start to crumble. Stick with me, because what comes next isn't a story of revenge. It's a story of clarity. Of rebuilding. Of finally understanding the difference between working for something and building for yourself. Let's begin. When I first joined Barrington and Company, it wasn't supposed to be a long-term thing. A stepping stone. A place to regroup after another company I worked for folded during the recession. I still remember my first day, an old desk in the back corner, a battered company laptop, and a list of outdated clients no one wanted to touch. No fancy onboarding, no grand welcomes, just quiet expectations and an unspoken challenge. Show us what you've got. And so I did. Over 9 years, I rebuilt that dusty client list into a powerhouse portfolio. I turned cold leads into loyal partners. I sat in airport lounges more weekends than I care to admit, chasing contracts, solving problems, earning trust. Missed family dinners. Missed birthdays. Always telling myself, it's worth it. One day, it'll all pay off. Barrington grew fast. From a modest regional player to a name that carried weight across multiple states. My accounts alone made up nearly 40% of their total revenue. But here's the truth I didn't want to see back then. I thought loyalty was a shield. That if I gave enough, worked hard enough, I'd be safe. Spoiler alert, in corporate life, loyalty is often a one-way street. Looking back, the first cracks were there long before the termination papers. Subtle shifts. Fewer meeting invites. New faces in leadership talking about modernizing and fresh energy. But when you're working 60 hours a week, running on caffeine and belief, it's easy to miss the signs. That's the thing about illusions, they're comfortable until they're not. Lesson learned. If you build your dreams inside someone else's house, don't be surprised when they hand you the eviction notice. And so, after 9 years of building someone else's empire, I found myself back at square one, or so I thought. But endings have a funny way of being disguised beginnings. Because when the walls came down, I realized I hadn't just built revenue. I had built relationships. I had built trust. And trust? That was something no one could fire me from. Now, let me tell you how everything began to shift the moment I made 3 very simple phone calls. The morning after my termination, the world felt eerily still. No morning briefings. No client reports. No sales projections. Just me. A cup of black coffee. And my phone. I promised myself, no anger, no bitterness. Just 3 calls. 3 people who mattered, not just for business, but because they trusted me, not the logo behind my name. The first call was to Travis Henders, the CEO of Westbrook Logistics, my largest client, $1.7 million annually. He answered on the second ring. Darren? What's up? I took a breath. Just letting you know, as of yesterday, I'm no longer with Barrington. Wanted you to hear it from me directly. There was a pause. Then a low, concerned grunt. Who's handling our account now? He asked. Not sure yet, I said carefully. But I'm happy to stay in touch however you need. He didn't hesitate. Keep me updated. If you land somewhere, we'll follow. Second call, Anna Martinez at Coral Tech Solutions. Third call, Peter Raymond at Sterling Builders. Same conversations. Same quiet promises. I didn't ask for loyalty. I didn't pitch a new plan. I just showed up, steady, honest, real, the same way I always had. By noon, my inbox was buzzing with messages. Heard the news. Where are you headed next? We'll wait to sign anything until we know your next move. It hit me then. Trust wasn't tied to my job title, it was tied to my name. Barrington had fired a senior executive. What they didn't realize? They just unplugged 40% of their revenue pipeline. And I hadn't even left my kitchen yet. That afternoon, as I sat at my dining table surrounded by years of work condensed into a cardboard box, a strange feeling settled in. Freedom. Because if 3 phone calls could shake an entire company's foundation, maybe I hadn't lost as much as I thought. Maybe. I'd just been set free to build something even stronger, on my terms this time. And trust me, the real story was only getting started. When I first started in sales, the advice was simple. Build the relationship. The business will follow. At 26, I thought it sounded old-fashioned. Now, after nearly 2 decades, I know it's the only thing that lasts. At Barrington, I wasn't just selling services. I was showing up at client weddings. Sending handwritten notes when a client's kid graduated. Calling on Sunday nights, not to close a deal, but to ask, how's the move going, or did the surgery go okay? The contracts were signed on paper. But the loyalty? That lived somewhere far deeper, somewhere a CRM system could never track. Brian, the VP who fired me, didn't understand that. To him, clients were data points, metrics, revenue streams. Replaceable. Transferable. Just numbers. But clients know the difference. Travis didn't stick with me because my email signature said Senior Account Executive. Anna didn't reach out because I had a fancy office. Peter didn't cancel his contract out of pity. They all made the same quiet decision. If Darren's not there, neither are we. Because trust isn't a corporate asset. It's a personal bond, forged in thousands of small, invisible moments over years. I realized something else too. While companies are busy investing millions into branding and rebranding, the most valuable brand they have is actually the human beings their clients trust. And when you lose that, no amount of discounts, loyalty programs, or shiny PowerPoints can save you. That day, watching the client messages roll in, it finally sank in. My real resume wasn't a list of titles. It was a network of trust. One that no termination letter could erase. And as I mapped out my next move, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about building something better, this time, with the right people, the right values, and the right kind of legacy. From the outside, Barrington still looked polished. Glossy ads. Ribbon-cutting ceremonies. Announcements of new hires. But behind the glass walls and LinkedIn posts, the cracks were widening. It started with a few missed client calls. Then a couple of delayed payments. Small things, the kind that don't make headlines. But I knew better. Small fractures grow into structural failure if you ignore them long enough. Brian scrambled to plug the gaps. Urgent meetings. Discount offers. Hasty apologies. But relationships, real ones, aren't something you rebuild in a quarterly sales cycle. They're built one conversation at a time and lost the same way. Meanwhile, I didn't lift a finger. I didn't send a single email asking clients to leave Barrington. I didn't offer a single incentive. I simply answered when they called. Explained where I was. Told them the truth, calmly and respectfully. That was enough. One by one, the pillars holding up Barrington's revenue began to crumble. The Henderson Group. Lockhart Manufacturing. Carlton Industries. Names that once stood proudly on the Barrington client list disappeared without fanfare. It wasn't revenge. It was gravity. You can't build a castle on sand and expect it to survive the tide. As news of the client departure spread, so did the panic. I heard through old colleagues. Sales goals were slashed. Budgets frozen. Recruiters flooded LinkedIn, offering new opportunities to the team Brian had assembled. But by then, it was too late. Barrington's collapse didn't happen because I left. It happened because leadership forgot who and what had built their house in the first place. And as I watched it all unfold from a quiet corner of my new office, I felt no bitterness. No triumph. Just clarity. Real value doesn't vanish when you lose a title. It walks out the door with the people who built it. And now, it was time to build something that would last, this time, on my terms. At Grantley & Company, things were different. On my first day, Michael, the CEO, didn't just hand me a list of accounts. He handed me a share of what I was about to build. Equity. Real ownership. A seat at the table where decisions were made, not just executed. I wasn't just managing clients anymore. I was helping shape the future of the company itself. This time, every late night, every tough call, every relationship built brick by brick, it all meant something bigger. Not a number on someone else's spreadsheet. Not a stepping stone for someone else's promotion. But a legacy with my name stitched into the foundation. I hired carefully, not for flashy resumes, but for loyalty, resilience, and empathy. People who valued trust over transactions. People who understood that a client is not a lead or a deal, it's a relationship. I also made a quiet vow. No one who helped build our success would ever be treated like they were replaceable. No sudden restructurings. No polished firings over white tablecloth lunches. No pretending that people's work and loyalty could be bought or sold like office furniture. If someone wanted to move on, they'd leave knowing exactly how much they mattered. Because now, I knew firsthand. When you build loyalty from the ground up, you don't just win deals. You win hearts, and that's a lot harder to lose. I could feel the shift happening. Our clients weren't just sticking around, they were bringing friends. Word was spreading quietly, powerfully. There's a place where you're not just another contract. You're part of something real. And deep down, I realized something else too. Maybe I hadn't lost 9 years at Barrington. Maybe I'd been earning the right to build this. About 3 months into my new role at Grantley, I got the email. It was from Everett Stanton, the CEO who had once walked past me in an elevator without a second glance, too busy with his phone to see the man who carried nearly half the company's revenue on his shoulders. Subject line. Coffee? Just the two of us. I stared at it for a long moment. Once, that invitation would have meant everything to me. Now, it meant something else entirely. Power. Not the kind you shout about. The quiet, unshakable kind that comes from knowing your worth and watching the people who didn't recognize it come to realize what they lost. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I spent the afternoon visiting one of our new client sites, a manufacturing company that had followed me to Grantley. Walking through the buzzing production floor, chatting with the team, hearing how the new service structure had made their work smoother and their lives easier. That was the real answer to Everett's email. Not a polite meeting over burnt coffee. Not an apology served too late. The answer was right here. In the growth, the trust, the new foundation we were building. A foundation that no one could take away this time. When I finally replied, I kept it simple. Thank you for reaching out. I'm proud of what we're building at Grantley. I wish you and your team the best in your next chapter. And that was it. No anger. No revenge plot. Just a quiet, clean step forward. Because sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's strength. It's knowing when the chapter is truly finished and choosing to turn the page yourself. And in doing so, you don't just move on. You rise. A few months after that quiet coffee invitation, I found myself standing at Grantley's annual leadership retreat. It wasn't a flashy event, no five-star resorts or celebrity speakers. Just a simple gathering in a sunlit hall, surrounded by the people who had helped rebuild something meaningful from the ground up. And as I looked around, I realized something important. At Trevant, they measured success in numbers. Quarterly revenue. Growth percentages. How many clients you could lock in before the next acquisition deal. At Grantley, we measured it differently. In trust. In loyalty. In the small but powerful moments where a client would call not because they had a problem, but because they simply trusted us to guide their future. That's the thing about relationships built on value instead of convenience. They don't crumble when things get hard. They don't disappear when a bigger check is waved in front of them. They stay. Because loyalty isn't bought. It's earned. Patiently. Quietly. Day after day. Standing there, I realized I hadn't just rebuilt a career. I had started to build a legacy, one that couldn't be erased by a new VP or a corporate reorg. One that would outlast market crashes, management turnovers, and every empty promise of fresh talent. Because when you build trust the right way, you're not just creating accounts. You're creating something no one can steal. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. It's funny how life has a way of teaching you the lessons you resist the most. For years, I believed that loyalty to a company would be enough. That if I worked harder, stayed longer, sacrificed more, someone would eventually notice and reward it. But the truth is, companies aren't built to love you back. Not really. It took losing everything, the office, the title, even the familiar routine, to realize that my real value had never lived in a job description or an organizational chart. It lived in the relationships I nurtured, in the promises I kept, in the quiet nights when I chose integrity over shortcuts, in the trust people placed in me, not in a logo, but in a person. The day they fired me, they thought they were cutting out a replaceable piece. They didn't realize they were severing the very roots their success had grown from. And when the dust settled, when the stock prices fell and the glossy downtown office emptied out, the truth stood taller than ever. You can fire an employee, but you can't erase a legacy. You can't replace a reputation. Today, I don't chase validation anymore. I build it, moment by moment, relationship by relationship. Not for applause. Not for revenge. But because that's the work that matters. And if I had to lose everything to learn that lesson, well, maybe it wasn't a loss at all. Maybe it was the best thing that ever happened to me. If there's one thing this journey has taught me, it's this. Your value isn't measured by titles. It's not determined by who recognizes you or who doesn't. It's defined by the impact you make, quietly and consistently, when nobody's watching. If you're sitting there tonight, feeling overlooked, underappreciated, underestimated, I just want you to know. You are building something powerful. Brick by brick. Relationship by relationship. Character by character. It may not be obvious yet. It may not come with applause. But when the moment comes, and it will, the foundation you've built will carry you further than any shortcut ever could. So keep showing up. Keep being the person people trust when everything else falls apart. Because quiet work builds unstoppable legacies. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear yours. Drop a comment below, tell me about a time you turned a setback into your strongest comeback. And if you're building your own path right now, know you're not alone. Like, subscribe, and share this video if you believe in the quiet power of resilience. Let's keep creating a community where real value is seen, built, and celebrated. Your story matters. And it's just getting started.